So I'd like to welcome everybody to session 2 of the Internet Video 101 training. Today we're going to be looking at the technical and the legal aspects of video. It'll start getting more interesting when we get into session 3, but this is just some fundamental information that you really need to understand before you start looking at making videos of your own. So we're going to look at a few things today. Under the technical aspects, we'll be looking at different screen formats, we're looking at file types and frame rates. Under the legal aspects, we'll be talking a bit about copyright and about royalty-free media. But I'll go on to those in more detail when we actually get to the relevant sections. So, starting the ball rolling with technical formats, we're going to look at screen formats. And there's two fundamental screen formats that you're going to come across very often when you're working with video. The first one is sort of the old standard TV format, which is what they call a 4:3 aspect ratio. What that means is that if you think that the width of the screen is a factor of 4 times whatever, that if you take that whatever, multiply it by 3 instead, you get the height. So as an example, if the screen is 400 wide, it will be 300 pixels high. And you get this almost box shape. Be very familiar to people. Do have a little example. And you'll see straight away why it's not great. So let's just play this. So you can see straight away we're in YouTube. We've got a video loaded up here which is in a 4:3 format, and we've got these ugly black bars down the side of the screen. So the other option that we have is the 16:9. This is sort of the high-definition widescreen format that people are becoming a lot more familiar with. So what this is saying is for whatever the width is, divide it by 16, times it by 9, you get the height. So keeping the numbers very simple, if the width is 1600 pixels, the height would be 900 pixels. That would give you the perfect HD widescreen format. And again, if we go back to YouTube, this now is going to start looking very familiar. So we can see straight away the real benefit of doing this in YouTube. Immediately we got rid of these black bars, so my video is really filling this space. And it just looks more professional when you're producing a marketing video. So, I mean, think about it. Widescreen format is preferred by YouTube. They would really love it if every single one of their videos was in that widescreen format. That's why they've standardized on it. But it's also preferred by the people who are actually viewing your video, because quite honestly, it's a more natural viewing experience. We don't look when we're looking out of our eyes, we're not looking in a restricted box shape. We're looking in a more of a horizon. And we're used to seeing horizons. We're used to scanning the horizon. So that wider screen experience is something that we're all more familiar with. It's what we see on TV these days. It's what we see when we go to the cinema. But from our perspective, it's great because it gives us more space to fit content onto the screen. Incidentally, some cinemas nowadays are actually going to 16:10 format, which is simply they've got bigger and bigger screens, they can get more into it, but I don't think that's anything that's going to affect us as internet marketers anytime soon. However, there is one huge caveat when we're talking about widescreen format. a lot of the tools that we're going to be looking at for making videos, widescreen is not the default setting. So at some point we'll talk about using PowerPoint, and we'll be looking at making videos with PowerPoint. But if you go into even the most recent versions of PowerPoint and say new PowerPoint file, you're going to get a 4:3 screen format. And you have to go into the settings and tell it that you're going to work with 16:9. And when we come onto it, I will go through that. It's one of the most important points of working with PowerPoint, in my opinion. You also find that a lot of templates that you get for PowerPoint are still in 4:3 format. And if you take the template and you simply switch it to 16:9, what it does is it stretches all the graphics and it looks very unnatural. So it's something to be very, very conscious of. The reason is that that's the case, by the way, is that most projectors are still 4:3 format. And since PowerPoint, Keynote, things like that are catering for the corporate world where they're working with projectors, they're sticking with that for their standards. So we need to be aware of it, we need to work with that, and we need to make sure that we're switching away from these defaults into a 16:9 widescreen format. So what does that mean when we come to the actual screen sizes? Well, if we're working with 4:3, we've got things like 800 by 600, which if you've been using PCs for a while, you might be aware that that was the traditional VGA screen resolution. Some projectors still only work at 800 by 600. Taking it down, you've got 640 by 480. For a long time, that was considered good quality online video. Not anymore. You can take that down even further, 320 by 240. The first ever video camera that I played with for online use worked at 320 by 240. And in fact, I still have a webcam that works at that resolution. But it's not compatible with Windows 7. That's probably actually quite fortunate, otherwise you might all ask me to put it on while I'm doing these presentations. We've then got the 16:9, the widescreen format. The one that a lot of people are familiar with is this 1920 by 1080. This is referred to as full HD resolution. Very often you'll hear it just referred to as 1080. The next one down is 1280 by 720. This is what most people refer to as high definition. It's what YouTube refers to as high definition. And again, you'll see this often referred to just as 720. Taking it down, we've got 800 by 450. I use this a lot for sales videos where I want them to sit nicely in a WordPress page. 800 by 450 seems to give you a nice size for viewing. Taking this down a little bit further, 710 by 400. If you go into the Internet Video 101 membership area, the videos in there are all produced at 710 by 400 because it gives you a good compromise between quality and size, but it's still usable and it can still be viewed at full screen without losing too much quality. And if we take this down further, we can get a 640 by 360, but for HD work it's starting to get a bit small at that resolution. Now, I do all of my videos at 1280 by 720. So whenever I'm capturing the screen, that's what I'm capturing at. Whenever I'm creating a new video, that's the resolution that I'm working to. One of the reasons that I don't go to full HD, apart from the fact that it's a significantly bigger file if you go to full HD, is that when you're using screen capture software, you have to set your recording dimensions. And my screen only has a width of 1440 pixels. So if I try and capture at 1920, I'll have a lot of dead area around my video. So 1280 by 720 works perfectly well for me, gives me great quality video, exactly what YouTube is looking for, and to be honest, anything beyond that really would be wasted. Now, one thing you do have to watch out for is aspect ratios. Aspect ratios is where we're talking about the actual pixels themselves. When we're looking at online video, when we're looking at creating our own videos, we're working with what's called square pixels. They have an aspect ratio of 1.0. That means it's 1 pixel wide, 1 pixel high. So if we're looking at 1280 by 720, that's the exact dimensions that we're going to get. If, however, you look at things like the official standard for DVD widescreen, you might find that you're working with an aspect ratio of 1.4, something close to that. And what that's saying is that for every 1 pixel high, it's 1.4 pixels wide. And the maths gets really confusing, but basically you're not working with square pixels, so these numbers that you're looking at on the screen go completely out of the window. And you might be working with a video that you've been given that's been recorded on a camera at some different aspect ratio. So very often an HD video camera would work at an aspect ratio of 1.33. So you'll take that footage into your video editor. You'll be wanting to work at 1280 by 720, but it might not be 1280 wide. It might only be 960 wide. So what you have to do is you need to import that into your 1280 by 720 video and change that aspect ratio to get it to look natural and to get it to fit nicely. I wouldn't say we should worry about it too much, but be aware of it. So if you create some footage on a camera, you suck it into your video editor and it looks odd, check your aspect ratio.